Right now, Israel is engaged in a war with Hamas in Gaza and also with Hezbollah to the north in Lebanon. What are your general feelings toward this whole situation?
I think it's a sad conflict. I think there's a lot of loss of life that's unnecessary, but I think Israel has like the full right to defend itself.
We can go into that. In the defense of Israel, right? The United States has given billions and billions of dollars in money and also military aid, whether it be weapons or the United States like shooting down missiles. Do you think this military aid from the United States is necessary?
I think absolutely. I think without the United States backing them, or one of their sole supporters since their like formation, without us, they would cease to exist. They're surrounded by hostile nations that like just want to see them gone. Like from the river to sea, they just want them exterminated. So I think it's super important that America stays like a vital ally and continue supporting, like no matter through like the administrations. I think that's like a cut deal. Like without us, they would cease to exist.
Absolutely. There's a lot of talk that we can talk about there. We can start with you mentioned hostile nations. What nations do you think pose the biggest threat to the Israeli state?
I mean, definitely Iran.
Iran?
Iran and its proxies. They've been like for as long as like since Israel's founded, Iran and its proxies have always been against Israel, and then Israel obviously against them.
So specifically Iran and its proxies. You mean Hamas and Hezbollah? Okay. Any other nations?
I don't think nations in general, for instance, like Lebanon, how it like used to be like, I think they have like some like national party, but Hezbollah is like taken over there pretty much, and they have their own like set up system, but Hezbollah calls all the shots, and they're kind of the people in the background that determine what happens and what doesn't. So I think it's no other nations besides Iran, but just all these proxy groups that have influenced other countries and have influence in their country that can be a threat to Israel.
Gotcha. We can go into more of the U.S. aid side of that as well. So, have you ever heard of APAC?
I have not now.
Okay, so are you familiar with lobbies in the U.S. government, how they work in regards to the federal government? So, the largest donor to Joe Biden and Republican Speaker of the House Mike Johnson was APAC. That is the U.S. lobby for Israel, right? Do you see this influence of money? Do you see that as one of the
Well,
driving factors of
I
why the
think
United States behaves why it does?
possibly, but I think it's Israel doing everything they can to keep the support where it's at and make sure it never diminishes. Because without, like I said earlier, in my opinion, without America's support, like it's only a matter of weeks until they'll just get eaten apart. So I think it's them doing everything they can to influence, like as I think they should, to influence in order to keep like the status quo of support for Israel throughout America.
Gotcha. So, as I'm sure you're aware, the United States is running a upwards of $30 trillion deficit. And we are still giving billions of dollars to other foreign nations. The nation of Israel actually
When you mean
has,
deficit, you're talking about like the foreign like, national debt?
yes, the national debt.
Okay.
Israel does not have that national debt. They have a surplus. Do you think if Israel was paying for these weapons, it would change how it's prosecuting this war any differently?
I don't think so personally. National debt's like been an issue like through politics for as long as I can remember, and sadly, there's no real like, there's nothing you can really do about it. At the end of the day, it's just like, it's just numbers on paper. Like it's like foreign debt, stuff like that, and it's up to America if we actually pay it back. So from like the near future, all I see is just us like adding more and more, and not really caring about paying it back.
Okay. Do you see Israel? I see what you're saying. what I'm asking is, do you think if Israel was paying for these military operations out of their own pocket, that they would change what they're doing?
Um, I think so. I just don't think they have the money to do that.
Okay.
Like their population size and they're like smaller than the state of Florida. Like I just don't think they have the resources to
Much,
do
much
that.
smaller, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can talk about that, the population. So, Israel, country of about 9 million. Between the West Bank and Gaza, there's about 1.5, 2 million-ish conflicting sources. Palestinians. What do we do to, what do we do moving forward with
Like
this
the
situation?
solution.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been a question as long as time since they were founded. I mean, as like you know today, like it's all divided up. Like Palestinian governed regions, Israeli governed regions, all that stuff. I think in a perfect world, a two-state solution would work. But I think throughout history and seeing the past of just violence and terroristic acts and just everything that's going on, that as of now, I don't think that could work.
What do you think is the greatest barrier to that happening?
I mean, it's just like the fuel of hate between like Jews and Arabs in the region, and that's been going on since like a long, long time. Like even like Cairo and like the Middle Ages, like extermination of the Jewish population, like all this stuff. So I think that's kind of like that goes back far into history. So I don't think there's any true right solution that can make both sides happy. I think, well, yeah, I just truly don't know. I just think that as like the conflict right now, Israel's doing the right thing. They're doing the right response to what happened like October 7th, like all this stuff. And yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, that's definitely something else we can talk about too. So October 7th, horrible day. Like between 1,200 and 1,500 Israelis were killed, babies murdered. Horrible day. Since then, with the military operations that Israel's carried out, there's been estimated between 30 and 40,000 Palestinians killed. The the number of militants in that number, there's conflicting numbers. Can't really get a good count, but at least some portion of those, a major portion, were civilians. Do you think Israel has been prosecuting this war the best way it could?
I think so, yeah. I think we're looking at guerrilla warfare versus conventional warfare. Conventional on Israel's side, guerrilla warfare on Hamas's side. As like you probably know, like the tunnel system, like everyone kind of knows, like they don't play fair, they play dirty. They'll hide like missiles and stuff in hospitals and churches and mosques, and they don't play by the rules. I know, like the casualty report you were saying, isn't it run by like the Hamas like health center of Gaza? So like no one knows if those numbers are actually true or not. They could be inflated. And, like obviously they would try to inflate the numbers because it only helps them look good. I think they're inflating the numbers as of now because of international support for like Hamas, like as you see at college campuses and like all throughout countries, like protests, all this stuff. Like I think it's just like totally, it helps them to inflate numbers, and they know what they're doing. They're fighting a war. You're gonna do anything you can to win. So I think that's a huge factor to it. But also like their fighting style. They're not gonna fight fair. It's not two conventionals. It's guerrilla warfare versus conventional army. Obviously, like just like Vietnam, like with all like innocent people killed and stuff like that. So I think that's like a driving factor to that.
Good point. What do you think the goal of Hamas is?
I mean, it says in their charter the destruction and extermination of the Israeli population.
Do you think that's what they were trying to achieve on October 7th?
No, I think they were just trying to hit them when it hurts. So much like rage and frustration built up throughout the years that I think it was their chance to take, and they just took it.
You mentioned the college campuses. Why do you think there's been such an outcry on specifically college campuses?
I mean, it's common knowledge that college makes you more liberal. That's kind of a thing. You go off to college, some people become more liberal through that. And I think that's what's destroying, like through like the indoctrination of that. I think it's just tarnishing Israeli support. Because at the end of the day, it's also like party-wise in like America, like Democrats versus Republicans. So it's all like way deeper than that. But for college campuses, I think it's just another movement, another trend.
Do you see any reason for it? Like why specifically college students would be protesting this war?
College students, I think that's a good question. Why do college students do it more? I think college is their first taste of like life outside their parents' foot. It's their first time to like freely express whatever they think or whatever they want. And I think sometimes people follow trends that they don't really know 100% what they're following. And I think that can influence, because like if your friend group was all doing something and you just went along with it and didn't know what they were doing, I think that is kind of like the same as to why there's like a big outcry on college campuses in a sense.
Okay. I'll ask you one last question. Where do you get your news from? And then how often do you check those sources?
My news, okay. Honestly, I mean, me and him have talked about this a lot, but like, I think obviously both sides, Republicans and Democrats, are both pushing their own agendas. Republicans are going to say whatever they want in order to help their party. Same with the Democrats. And unfortunately, I don't think that will change anytime soon, and might only get worse. Personally, I'll try to listen to like BBC or honestly Twitter. Just watch like raw videos and like firsthand accounts of what's actually happening. But I think media plays a big influence into what you believe. So if you're only watching one type of media, I think it's super easy to get just indoctrinated into everything they're pushing onto you. Because for the uneducated person that doesn't have like good critical thinking skills, you're just gonna believe whatever the guy in the suit on TV is saying. So I think no matter what like news outlet you listen to, I think it's important to question everything, critical thinking skills, and just like take everything with a grain of salt.
Absolutely. We can mention that with the social media side of things. There's a great generational divide between, say, the baby boomers and more Gen Z folk. Baby boomers tend to get most of their news information from CNN, Fox News, cable news networks, where there are a lot of narratives spread, like you've said, where there's a lot of corporate influence. Gen Z people, I've talked to hundreds of kids, and the vast majority of them say that at least a large part of their media diet
TikTok.
comes from TikTok.
And I think that's
not
even
only-
more dangerous in my
Oh,
opinion.
yeah?
But you keep finishing your question.
No, I was just going to say from social media outlets.
I think
more
that's
short form.
even more
platforms.
uneducated, as TikTok is owned by foreign nationals, and I think that's even more dangerous just because in America, whatever news outlet you're listening to, at the end of the day, will have pro-American interests, and at the end of the day, like they're for yourself. I think like social media, TikTok, all that stuff is easily influenced by outside anything. I just think it's just not a good way to get news at all.
Gotcha. Thank you very much, dude.
Yeah.